Welcome to Three Talks On. Today, my guest is Dr. David Metcalf. David, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you, Rafael?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for making time. You know, you're a very busy man. We've been trying to make time
Thank
for
you.
what now, almost 2 years to play music. So I'm glad, at least we can have this conversation. I'm very much looking forward to it. So today we're going to be talking about augmented reality, virtual reality, and artificial intelligence and how it's impacting us today and how it could impact us in the future, specifically in the field of learning. But before we get started, could you please take a minute and just share with the audience about you and your background and how you got to do what you do today?
Yeah, sure. So thank you so much for everything that you do in the community. And it's great to be on your show today, too. So thanks, Ralph. So we've known each other for a few years in the context of being in a living laboratory in Lake Nona and the ability to go in and take some of the latest and greatest technologies and get to explore them in new and unique ways, particularly in terms of health, education, the environment, and many other things that benefit our society. So it's been really fun to create with you, to think with you, brainstorm. So I just view this as one of those opportunities. By way of background, I started NASA's Multimedia Lab out at Kennedy Space Center and then spun that off into a company, did the first online exams in Silicon Valley, and they were paid, and sold that company and a couple of other cybersecurity companies over the years, and decided that I wanted to teach young people how to do the same thing that I had done early in life in my 20s, in their younger parts of their life here at University of Central Florida. Met the Institute for Simulation and Training, have a laboratory called METIL, stands for Mixed Emerging Technology Integration Lab. So you can see how we get to play a lot with some of the different latest and greatest tools in terms of augmented and virtual reality, and maybe some of the things that really superpower those technologies too, behind the scenes, the one you don't see as much. So some opportunity to talk about those too. And it's been really fun for almost 20 years now in the university environment too, as well as outside investing with some of the groups that you've seen me with too, like Global Blockchain Ventures and Merging Traffic, our investment funds. So get to kind of wear a couple different hats in the community, but it's all in the spirit of inspiring innovation every day and helping other people kind of realize their dreams. So that's been the most fun and fulfilling thing that I think we both share as well too.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you very much for that background. So let's get into it, because I am looking forward to hear a little bit more detail about this. I know that you have that background in learning or e-learning, and obviously we're living in exciting times with artificial intelligence and with augmented reality and virtual reality. So why don't we get started with what's going on today in the field of AR, VR, and how it connects, if you will, with learning and artificial intelligence?
Yeah, it's been interesting because the first part of your question, there's been so much movement in the technology, particularly in AR and VR. You've got things like the Quest 2 and now the Quest 3 coming out that have really had a mass market adoption with less chance of feeling any sickness, with whole leagues forming around esport and games, and a whole culture brewing up around these technologies, new and better games, and new and better applications for practical, pragmatic use of these technologies. So think about in healthcare, think about in finance, think about in education, a number of other areas too. And that's where our team gets to benefit and gets to play with some of these new technologies for the benefit of society. On the augmented reality front, we've got new devices coming out too. We've got the Apple Vision Pro Plus and some of the other things that have been announced recently. We've got early software development kits for, and some people are starting to get pretty excited about Apple coming into that space. Some of this technology that they bought a number of years ago and have continued to refine out of Scandinavia that we've gotten to play with for years. So it's good to see it back on the market is one way of looking at it. These things have a way of repeating themselves. One of the trends that I'm most excited about is just how easy development in AR and VR is becoming too. There's some tools that allow you to capture 3D video or allow you just to take the camera on your phone and be able to go and capture 3D, turn that into photorealistic models in seconds. You used to have big sophisticated cameras, or something we had called Jarvis that had 80 cameras that took a picture of you in the surround and then put them all together. Gone are those days, probably. Motion capture is as simple as wearing a couple things on your wrist and your ankles. Those are some things that Sony was showing last week too at a couple of the conferences. There's just a number of things that are happening to make it far easier to produce this. One of those is a spinoff from UCF called Access VR, making capture of 3D video and VR as easy as PowerPoint. So those are some of the ones that we're looking at that are really changing the market and the landscape too. It's never as easy as just PowerPoint to capture and to put these things into a usable format for e-learning, for training, for simulation, for a number of other application areas, to documentation of systems. All those things that we think of as in our enterprise jobs, right? Those become much easier to do. So it's been really great to see some of those tools that are emerging. One of those sets of tools or categories of tools for the second part of your question has really been AI. And I've been shocked over just even the past few months at how things that we thought were going to be possible a few years from now are now possible right now. And then there are release cycles for very small teams of programmers that are using AI to continue to produce better and better every week image capture and generative AI, so that you have still images. But more so than that, there's tools like Runway 2 we've been playing with that allows you to auto-gen video and motion graphics animation. Those are some of the types of things that could be in a headset and that you can speak into reality from text prompt into not just a still image, which most people know you can do, but into animated graphics, or at least a movie of something that appears to be 3D, or, and here's the kicker, even true 3D objects. I saw a demo recently where you can be in a 3D scene on a website and just say, in that 3D scene, give me a meadow with a river in it, and then put a bear on one side and a tree on the other, put a cabin in the middle. I would like a campfire. And as you say those things, each of those assets in low primitives, not doesn't look very sophisticated, looks kind of like Roblox level, come onto the screen. Think about how long it would take someone who's really talented to go and set up that scene. It'd probably take them 3 to 5 minutes, nothing too long, but 3 to 5 minutes to get it the way you want. And there we got the base scene set in about 25 seconds. Now that may not sound like a lot, but when you scale that up to a whole movie, or when you scale that up to even corporate or healthcare production, or are able to call in and say, give me an image of the heart. I need to be photorealistic. I need to make sure that heart has an arrhythmia, and I want you to show me that arrhythmia, and boom, it does it. Those are the types of things that might take even more time to do. And all of a sudden you've got automated production using AI of your finished product, which frankly can get closer to studio quality once you set the primitives and set the models that you want to have for the base models, and then apply different lighting and filtering. You could just say, oh, change the lighting 20% darker, and make sure you give me a gobo that gives me a leaf pattern sprayed over this at this interval of, I want it to rotate the full cycle every 25 seconds. And all of a sudden, all of those things happen rather than having to go and tell your key grip to do that, or go and set your lighting inside of some parameters inside of a studio level application, or an application like Unity or Unreal. Those are the types of things that are happening in simplified tools right now, but that there have been recent demos from all of the big players, including Unity and Unreal, for AAA game production, to be able to make it as easy as that, to go and create your 3D scenes. And then once you have the 3D scene set, you can still use all your normal feature functions of your mouse or your keyboard to go and move in precise place and precise lighting and everything else too. But to get a base scene set, do your set design, set dressing, and everything else too, with generative AI, with pre-existing models or models that it creates on the fly, those are things that are pretty dynamic and pretty incredible that you can do. And we get to see that in action. It might also make it so that you could say, oh, format this for a web app, format it now for a mobile app. And I need it in this format to be able to go into a HoloLens 2, or I need in this format to go into a Quest 3, let's say 3. Those are the types of things that start to become much easier. Some of this is here now, some of this is right around the corner, but these are the things we should be preparing for if we're going to be using this to produce learning outcomes and produce learning assets, simulations. Those are the types of things that we're starting to get to play with in the labs that are right around the corner for all of you.
Well, thank you for that background. So let me throw something at you and see if you can kind of expand on it or unpack it a little bit. I've been fascinated with the world of education because my mother, she was an educator, and towards the latter part of her career, she was growing frustrated with the fact that the education system really hadn't changed much in decades.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, with the advent of personal computers and having computers in schools, that was kind of an inflection point in the learning process of the children being able to now have access to computers. Today, kids have access to iPads and different things. But at the end of the day, the process of learning is still pretty much the same, right? The overall overarching process is the same. It seems that we're finally at a place where we could be experiencing a true inflection point in the field of learning by this elegant merger of augmented reality, virtual reality, properly married with artificial intelligence and machine learning engines, to the point that now our children or our grandchildren could be learning in a completely new way that may look foreign to us, people like you and I who grew in a different era. Do you see it that way? And if so, can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I do see it that way. But it's not a trend that's just started with AI. It started further back than that too, with some of the educational technologies, some of the technology we almost take for granted now, the mobile phone, and how accessible some things become, and how it's easy to go in and be able to repeat and practice things all the way to mastery when you have a digital assistant of some sort. That's what's been really fascinating to see. We had a app that won Mobile App of the Year, not because it was for the military, not because it was so sophisticated, but because it was so simple. We applied 100-year-old technology of the spacing effect. You know how parents always said, don't cram, it doesn't work. If you do 60 minutes right before the test versus 10 minutes for 6 days, you'll do much better. Everyone will do much better with 10 minutes each day. But this automated which even simple cards that you saw, like the playing cards that you saw each day, based on how well you knew them the day before or the day before, and got to where you knew everything to a mastery level, not just a minimum competency. We saw a 16% improvement in learning outcomes. That's going from a high C to a low A. And that's why it won the award, not because of glitz and glamour or anything else or what type of technology was used. It's because you were able to better implement a proven and very effective learning model that you couldn't really do very easily without the mobile device and the app to keep track of which cards you knew, which cards you didn't, and have all the metrics behind the scenes. That was all hidden from you. You just saw what cards you got. Now this technology is built into Quizlet and other things like that too, so it's become much more common. But at the time, it was kind of novel to have it inside of a modern technology and not have to have a very archaic and a difficult system to try and get those results. And the same thing is true for augmented and virtual reality, kind of taking a leap forward into the core topic. We look at this and don't just look at bells and whistles. We look at results. And a few studies come to mind that we oftentimes talk to people about for this. If you have 3D data versus 2D data, many times in complex situations, you make better decisions. One of the examples is having a 3D set of weather maps on your phone versus a 2D set of weather maps on your phone that Airbus did with a couple of universities in France and in Germany. And they saw a 20 to 30% improvement in the outcomes in complex weather. Now, those outcomes in complex weather could be someone flying to the side of a mountain. So this is really serious. This is more than just learning. This is human performance and human performance engineering. So we look at that and we say, well, what 3D? Then we talk to pilots, and pilots, because of the nature of their job, unless they are a fighter jet and have a helmet that projects augmented reality, which some of those do, if they're a commercial pilot, they don't want anything on their eyes or face and stuff too. They want to have something they can just look down at a phone or a tablet and have it be in 3D without any glasses. Those are some of the things, the technology we've been looking at too, the LumaPad and other things like that give you 3D, no glasses. And then the same thing is true for heart surgeons too. We have a company we invested in outside of UCF called RealView Imaging that has holograms with no glasses for heart surgeons. And these very sophisticated systems come out of fighter jet helmets out of Israel and have been approved by FDA here in the US too, through Johns Hopkins and some other studies. And think about having a 3D view of the heart rather than having to look at one side view, another side view from MRI images, having that in real time and being able to project that hologram into the patient's chest cavity so you can compare the real heart to the hologram heart and what you want to do for its actual cure and treatment with that. Those are things that are impossible to do and impossible to practice unless you want to be the person they're practicing on. So those are the types of things that are going to be already here and are coming our way that we get to kind of see those results. That same 3D imaging for breast cancer imaging has led to, at Emory, a study they did at Emory, 5,000 plus women, they saw like a 49% reduction in callbacks to take a second look. No one wants to know that they have to come back and have a secondary callback. The costs, the health accuracy, and of course the psychological of that whole whatever number of days thinking that you might have cancer. All of that is a huge toll on society. And if 3D can help with that versus 2D, they were seeing a 26% improvement in positive diagnostic outcomes from using this technology. All these things are really moving the needle on decision making in leadership and complex situations that you don't want people to make any mistakes. And that's where the true power of something like 3D, whether it's in AR, whether it's in VR, whether it's no headsets, you can just see the 3D laid out in front of you, just like in the Avengers movies or Iron Man or things like that. Those things are real in certain camps. They're very expensive, but they're real in certain camps, and you can make use of them. The reason to use them is there's such high consequence that it's worth the cost of these systems. And then, as we know, those systems will be 10 times cheaper in just a few years. And at that point, it becomes mass market adoption. That's the power of spatial computing, XR, extended reality, and some of the different systems in AR, VR, and training. You add the superpower of AI, like I was talking about before too, and you have the ability to have all the world's knowledge at your fingertips. Probably a double-edged sword to that too, before we get everybody too excited. Because we were just talking earlier today about who still knows how to do things themselves. When the AI fails, who knows how to double check the AI to make sure it's right? Who knows that you may think you have expertise, but what if it's hallucinating? These are all things that are very real issues right now, and will probably be real issues into the future, especially with people wanting to misuse it for things like deepfakes or other nefarious things that are part of hacking or part of cybersecurity and terrorism and other things in our world that we don't like. There's always two sides to the coin of the technologies we use. And I know a lot of people are concerned about AI. We're concerned about it. We have some ethics policies here that we follow closely, and disclosure when AI is used and how it's used. But we are leaning tech positive on this too, for some of the things that we see in the automation of very tedious and redundant tasks, the ability for complex tasks to be simplified for people who would normally not have access or be able to do those complex tasks. And now it's something that can be second nature to them. That is a new superpower of the internet. The same way that blockchain was a superpower of the internet to instill trust in people. And cybersecurity and the ability to protect us from things like quantum computing attacks in the future, where you have a skeleton key because every one can be a zero, every zero can be a one in your passwords. Those are things that we're all concerned about, especially if you're in banking or national security or health records, which everybody has sovereignty to and should be able to control. Those are all things that there's potentially grave concern over and great promise. One of the things that we're working on, and I hope you'll join me in this, Raf, and a number of the others from our great health, equity, and AI summit that we had at KPMG a couple weeks ago, and the other things we've done at HIMSS, at the AI and Machine Learning Forum, other groups that are coming around to do a new book called ABC, AI, Blockchain, and Cyber for Healthcare. And then a subtitle that's Emerging Technologies in the Era of Quantum. So those are some of the things that we'll be highlighting this next spring in the book that's coming out on that topic area too. So number of things that we're pretty excited about, as you can tell, but it's really those crossroads, the intersection of some of these technologies, where we start to see the real power and benefit to society, as long as we can also be thoughtful and mindful of some of the threats and risks that are associated with those too.